Hi, I'm Radmar, and today I'll be reading to you about Saint Stanislaus from Stories of the Saints by Carrie Wallace with pictures by Nick Thornborough. Years later, in another country, a different king named Boleslaus took the throne of Poland. Boleslaus the Bold. As soon as he began to rule, he started a long war with the Frankish kings from France and Germany. It didn't matter to him how much the war cost his people or how many of them were hurt or killed. When he wanted property, he used his power as king to force his people out of their homes so he can have them. Finally, he kidnapped another nobleman's wife and locked her up because he wanted her for himself. The Polish noblemen were furious, but they were afraid of Boleslaus. So they went to Stanislaus, who had just become a bishop, and Stanislaus went to the king. "What you are doing isn't right," he told Boleslaus. "You should let that woman go back to her husband." Boleslaus kicked Stanislaus out of the court. Then he started to invent false stories about him. Stanislaus had just bought a piece of land on the Vistula River for the church, but Peter, the man he bought it from, had died. So Boleslaus got Peter's sons to drag Stanislaus into court and claim that Stanislaus hadn't paid for the land. That was fine with them because then they got to keep the land and the money Stanislaus had given their father. "I can bring a witness who will prove I paid for that land," Stanislaus told Boleslaus as he stood before the court, "if you'll just give me 3 days." The whole court roared with laughter. "Your only witness is a dead man," King Boleslaus said. "But go ahead, take your 3 days." For 3 days, Stanislaus prayed. Then he put on his bishop's robes and led a procession to the cemetery where Peter had been buried and ordered Peter's grave opened. When the grave diggers unearthed Peter's body, Stanislaus said, "Peter, get up." Peter climbed out of his grave. Somebody gave Peter a robe, and the whole procession went back to the court of Boleslaus. When Peter saw his 3 sons at the king's table drinking and enjoying themselves, he glowered at them. "How could you lie about this good man, Stanislaus?" he asked them. "You know as well as I do that he paid me for that land." Everyone in the court could see for themselves that the king's accusations against Stanislaus were false. "Would you like to stay alive?" Stanislaus asked Peter as they left the court. But Peter said no, so they took him back to the cemetery and laid him to rest again in his grave. For a little while, Boleslaus seemed to reform, but soon he was back to his old ways. When Stanislaus realized that Boleslaus hadn't changed, he had him excommunicated, which means he couldn't come to church. Boleslaus pretended that he didn't care. He came to church anyway. But Stanislaus stopped the service in the middle, so Boleslaus couldn't be part of it. This made the king furious. "Go kill that man," he commanded the 3 soldiers who had come to church with him. The bishop?" The soldiers answered. "We can't kill him. Look, he's surrounded by a heavenly light." "I'll do it myself," Boleslaus fumed. And right there, in the church, he ran Stanislaus through with his sword. The guards hacked Stanislaus's body into pieces and left them by a pond outside the city for wild animals to eat. But instead, 4 eagles landed near the pond all around Stanislaus. As they stood guard, the parts of his body came back together, made whole. And when the people heard what the king had done to Stanislaus, they were so outraged that they ran him from his throne. Whew. The end. Thanks for listening.